C.S. Lewis was one of the most unusual men God ever pursued. He was not a preacher. He was not an evangelist. He was not a man who spoke in tongues or raised the dead. He was a professor, a pipe-smoking Oxford academic, one of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century, and one of Christianity's most determined enemies. He called belief in God a childish fairy tale. He called the miracles of the Bible primitive mythology. He called Christians intellectual cowards who could not face the real world. And then God came after him, not with thunder, not with a vision, not with a supernatural encounter, but with something far more dangerous to an atheist, with logic, with reason, with truth. And C.S. Lewis, the man who spent years building the case against God, found himself completely unable to argue his way out. This is the testimony of C.S. Lewis, the most reluctant convert in all of England. Welcome to God's General's Testimony. Today we are looking at one of the most extraordinary intellectual conversions in Christian history. A man who proved that God is not afraid of your questions. He is not threatened by your doubts. And he will pursue you, even into the deepest corners of your unbelief. But before we begin, if you love the stories of the men and women God used to shake nations, make sure you subscribe to God's General's Testimony, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss these powerful testimonies from church history. Now, let us begin. Clive Staples Lewis was born on the 29th of November, 1898, in Belfast, Northern Ireland. His father, Albert, was a lawyer. His mother, Florence, was a mathematician. And from his very earliest years, young Clive, who preferred to be called Jack, was brilliant. Extraordinarily, uncomfortably brilliant. He devoured books the way other children devoured sweets. He was reading advanced literature before most children could tie their shoes. He had a mind like a steel trap, and a heart that was about to be broken. Because when Jack Lewis was 9 years old, his mother Florence was diagnosed with cancer. And Jack did what any 9-year-old boy would do. He prayed. He prayed with everything he had. He believed with everything he had. He got down on his knees and begged God to heal his mother. And his mother died anyway. Just like that. The faith of a child shattered. If God was real, why did he not answer? If God was good, why did he let her suffer? If God was powerful, why did he do nothing? Jack Lewis tucked those questions away in a corner of his heart and walked away from God. He was sent to boarding school. He hated it. The religious exercises were dull and forced. The chapel services felt empty and performative. Nothing in the religion he saw around him felt real. Then came World War I. Jack Lewis was sent to the trenches of France at 19 years old. He saw things no human being should ever see. Death, suffering, meaningless slaughter. Boys younger than himself dying in the mud for nothing. By the time he returned from the war, Jack Lewis was not just an unbeliever. He was a committed atheist, an intellectual atheist, the kind who had thought it all through and arrived at a conclusion. There is no God. The universe is cold and empty and indifferent. Life has no meaning beyond what we give it. And anyone who believes otherwise is fooling themselves. He won a scholarship to Oxford University. He became a lecturer in English literature. He was brilliant. He was popular. He was absolutely certain there was no God. But then something began to happen. something slow, something inconvenient, something that annoyed him enormously. He began to read. And the books he was reading kept pointing toward God. He picked up a book by G.K. Chesterton, meaning to find arguments against Christianity. Instead, he found the most winsome, logical, compelling defense of faith he had ever encountered. He said afterwards, "A young man who wishes to remain a sound atheist cannot be too careful of his reading." Then he discovered George MacDonald, a Scottish author whose writing carried something Lewis could not explain. A quality, a light, something that reached past his intellect and touched something deeper. He said reading MacDonald was like being baptized in the imagination. Then there were the Friends, the Inklings, a group of Oxford scholars who gathered regularly to share their writing and ideas. Among them was a quiet medievalist named J.R.R. Tolkien, the man who would one day write The Lord of the Rings, and Hugo Dyson, and Owen Barfield. And one by one, these brilliant men kept pushing back against Lewis's atheism, not with emotion, not with religious platitudes, but with logic, with philosophy, with the very weapons Lewis had used to fight against faith. And Lewis could not defeat them. Then came the night that changed everything. In the autumn of 1931, Tolkien and Dyson walked with Lewis along Addison's Walk at Oxford. They talked through the night, for hours, about myth, about story, about the dying and rising gods of ancient mythology. And Tolkien said something that cracked open the door. He said, "The difference between Christianity and every other myth is that this one actually happened. The dying God, the resurrection. It is not just a story. It is history." Lewis walked home that night with something broken open inside him. He could not sleep. He could not dismiss it. A few days later, sitting in the sidecar of his brother's motorcycle, on the way to Whipsnade Zoo, something happened. He said he did not know when the journey began, but by the time it ended, he knew. He wrote in his autobiography, "That which I greatly feared had at last come upon me. I finally gave in and admitted that God was God, and knelt and prayed." Perhaps that night, the most dejected and reluctant convert in all of England, the most brilliant atheist at Oxford, had surrendered to God. Not with joy, not with fireworks, not with tears and emotion, but with the quiet, reluctant, absolute conviction that it was true. What followed was one of the most remarkable intellectual ministries in Christian history. Because Lewis did not just become a Christian, he became Christianity's greatest defender. He wrote Mere Christianity, a book that has brought more people to faith than almost any other Christian work of the 20th century. He wrote The Problem of Pain. He wrote Miracles. He wrote The Screwtape Letters, a brilliantly witty exploration of spiritual warfare told from the perspective of a senior demon writing to a junior one. He wrote The Chronicles of Narnia, 7 children's books that smuggled the gospel into the imaginations of millions of children and adults who never knew they were reading theology. He broadcast talks on BBC Radio during World War II, speaking to a nation shattered by bombs and grief, about the reality of God, about the meaning of suffering, about the hope of resurrection. Millions listened. Millions were changed. The former atheist had become the voice of faith for a generation. But even this giant of intellect walked through his deepest valley. In 1956, at the age of 57, C.S. Lewis married a woman named Joy Davidman, an American writer, a former atheist and communist, a woman who had come to faith partly through reading Lewis's own books. He married her quietly at first, to give her British citizenship, but somewhere in the process, he fell deeply and unexpectedly in love. They had just a few years together. Because Joy was diagnosed with cancer, the same disease that had taken his mother all those years ago, he prayed. He believed. He even claimed to have experienced physical pain in his own body as God transferred it from hers. For a season, she went into remission. They had a brief, beautiful season of happiness. And then she died. Lewis was devastated. He kept a journal of his grief. He wrote honestly, brutally honestly, about what it felt like to lose someone you love, about the silence of God in suffering, about the questions that refused to go away. He published it as A Grief Observed, under a pen name at first, because it was too raw, too honest, too painful. In it he wrote, "Where is God? Go to him when your need is desperate, when all other help is vain. And what do you find? A door slammed in your face." But the journal did not end in despair, because Lewis kept writing and kept searching, and eventually came back to the same place he had always come back to: faith. Not easy faith, not comfortable faith, but real faith, the kind that has looked the darkness in the face and chosen to believe anyway. On the 22nd of November 1963, C.S. Lewis went home to be with the Lord. He was 64 years old. He died quietly at his home in Oxford, on the very same day that President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. His death was barely noticed in the news. The world was too busy mourning a president. But the legacy of C.S. Lewis would outlast them all. His books have sold over 200 million copies worldwide. They have been translated into more than 30 languages. Mere Christianity alone has been cited by thousands of people, including former atheists, including scientists, including philosophers, as the book that brought them to faith. The man who called himself the most dejected and reluctant convert in all of England had become one of the most effective evangelists in the history of Christianity. Without ever preaching a single crusade, without ever laying hands on a single sick person, without ever speaking in tongues or performing a miracle, just with words, true words, carefully chosen, brilliantly arranged, soaked in the reality of a God he had tried his very best not to believe in. C.S. Lewis proved that God is not only found in revival tents and healing crusades. He is found in libraries, in lectures, in late-night conversations between friends, in the quiet surrender of a brilliant mind that finally ran out of arguments against the truth. He proved that God can use an intellectual just as powerfully as he uses an evangelist. He proved that faith and reason are not enemies. They were always meant to walk together. He used to say, "I believe in Christianity as I believe the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it, I see everything else." This was C.S. Lewis, the most reluctant convert, the greatest defender of the faith. And his words still lead people home every single day. If this testimony opened something in you today, write in the comments, "The most reluctant convert." Tell us which general of faith you would love us to cover next on God's General's Testimony. And if you have not yet subscribed, this is your moment. Join this growing family as we uncover the lives, miracles, and sacrifices of the men and women God used to change the world. Until next time, keep the faith. Stay hungry for God. And remember, God is not afraid of your questions. He is big enough for every single one.